edition of the Contractors Secret Weapon weekly podcast with your hosts, Dave Negri. This program is dedicated to helping contractors, remodelers, painters, roofers, roof cleaners, and business owners in the construction industry gain an unfair advantage over the competition. This program supplies you with information that the competition doesn't even know exists. This session brought to you by ContractorsSecretWeapon.com.
Before we get into the conversation with you, I just want to do a shout out to our sponsors who help promote Contractors Secret Weapon and just some of the things that they have in store for you, our listeners. Hey, is your phone ringing enough? Do you want it to ring more with highly motivated and qualified buyers that contact you, the contractor, directly? No more waiting for the phone to ring. Just answer that phone. Best Home Services leads are dedicated to making your phone ring with motivated buyers that call you directly. There's no obligation to talk with them. Just go to ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/money. Fill out the form to secure your discount on the setup fee. Do it today. This special will not last forever. Check them out at ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/money.
Running a small business is no easy task, and I should know because I had a service company for almost 10 years. I am the founder of a software called Radius Bomb, and it's unbelievable. And for all the listeners of Contractors Secret Weapon, we have a special offer for you to check out. If you want to send hyper-targeted, laser-focused, super personalized postcards to your exact prospects using a map while sitting in your underwear, then go to ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/Radius Bomb, and we'll give you your first 100 postcards for free. Just go to ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/Radius Bomb.
Hey, today's episode is going to be a little bit longer than normal, but I just want to prepare you for it. I did a teleseminar with Jim Palmer for one of my other businesses. Some of you know that I have another business, and we created an education page for our realtors, and the content was so good that I asked Jim if I could double dip him and use his teleseminar for our contractors at Contractors Secret Weapon. He said, absolutely. So today's podcast is about how to get a 100% open rate on your newsletter. And again, it is a little bit longer than normal, but stick in. You'll get some awesome content from Jim and some great thoughts on how to get that 100% open rate with your newsletter. So let's go to the show. Today I've got a teleseminar, and I brought on Jim Palmer, the newsletter guru, because I had promised that we would do a webinar or bring something, teleseminar, to bring something to you that would teach you how to get a 100% open rate on your newsletter. And so that's what we did. I got Jim. He's known as the newsletter guru, and I just want to say, hey, Jim, thanks for letting us get together and talk about this, because I know this is one of your favorite subjects.
It is something I've been known at for. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
it's something I've been known at for a long time, man. Thanks for having me. You know, it's been so long since I've done an interview about newsletters. I hope I'm not terribly rusty for your audience.
No, it'll be fine because a lot of the stuff I got from you, and I know one of our mentors is Dan Kennedy, and when Dan says the best thing you could do is do a newsletter, I'm going, well, why should I block that? Dan knows what he's talking about. So one of the things that I wanted to bring you on, because you are known as the newsletter guru, and there's just a lot of things that I think that people are missing in their newsletter that could give them a better result. Like, is there frequency? How often do you recommend sending out a newsletter or an email, a newsletter magazine, e-zine?
So, all right. So first of all, I got to tell you, I love the way you promote this show, because how to get a 100% open rate. I mean, so many people, Dave, you can give them all the evidence in the world as to the effectiveness of a newsletter. And I'm going to be talking about print and mail, paper and ink newsletters. But everybody assumes in this technological age we're in, we're talking about electronic newsletters, or some people call them e-zines and things like that. And my goodness, if you get like a 5 or 6 or 7% open rate when you do a broadcast email, if you got a decent sized list, you're like a rock star, right? And so what that means, and I'm going to say, let's say you get 10%, because I'm pretty bad at math, but let's say you get a 10% open rate, which would be amazing, and you have 1,000 customers and past customers on your list. Every time you send your newsletter, 900 of your 1,000 customers are not hearing from you. They're not receiving it. They're not reading it or anything like that. So when people talk about a 100% open rate or 100% deliverability rate, the only way to do that is to mail them a paper and ink newsletter that hits the mailbox at the end of their driveway. And the only exception to that rule that I can even think of is if Newman from Seinfeld's your mailman and he dumps his couple bags behind his couch. Otherwise, the newsletter is going to land in your customer's driveway. Now, whether they open it and read it or not, that's a good question. And so now let me answer the question you just asked. Yes, so frequency, number one, is really important. You should be mailing monthly. So you want to mail your paper newsletter every single month. And I do think you also want to have a weekly newsletter, electronic version, not the same thing, much, much shorter, something that can be read in, my goodness, probably 30 seconds or less would be my opinion there. But it's really two different animals. And I want to give you, we're going to start off with a bang. I'm going to give you a tip that costs absolutely $0, but produces a huge increase in response and results. So you want to mail your newsletter every single month, but better than that, Dave, you want to mail your newsletter the same 1 or 2 days every single month. And honestly, there is no, should I mail it on the 1st, the 10th, the 15th, 22nd, when? There's no specific time to mail it. So if somebody's listening to this now and it happens to be Wednesday the 13th or whenever this comes out, if you put out a newsletter that day and it's your first one, that becomes the mailing date for your newsletter. So every single month moving forward, you mail your newsletter the same day. The reason you want to do that is if you think about when you go to your mailbox and things that arrive on time and usually the same day every month, like maybe it's your bank statement, your bills, magazines that you subscribe to, things that arrive on schedule have a higher perceived value, and things that arrive sporadically, different times, kind of willy-nilly, those things are generally, right or wrong, classified as junk mail. So you don't want to mail your newsletter every time the spirit moves you. If you simply mail it the same 1 or 2 day period, it will arrive, within the same 1 or 2 day period every month, even if you use standard mail, which I think is fine. And that automatically, over a few months, is going to give it a higher perceived value. Oh, we got a newsletter. The first month, is it going to make your cash register drawer pop open and spit out hundreds? No. But the second month, third month, they see it, top of mind, you're sharing success stories and all the different things we'll talk about. It's definitely going to have an impact in your business. But that's one tip you can do that actually costs no money.
Wow. Yeah. Now, do you recommend, now in the newsletters that you guys do they come in envelopes or are they in an open format so that they see them, they know what's there?
They are, yeah. They're open format, or the term I use is they're self mailers. Now, right. I'll give you another tip, because a lot of people I've seen, they'll take their newsletter, and again, whether it's a 2-page or a 4-page, and for your listeners, Dave, a 4-page newsletter is an 11 by 17 sheet of paper folded to 8.5 by 11. That's your 4-page newsletter, okay? But what you want to do is you don't want to trifold that so it then becomes the same size as a regular business size envelope, because when somebody takes their mail and they scoop it all out, it's going to be fit in there with all the other envelopes. You want to mail your newsletter 5.5 by 8.5. So if it's a 4-page newsletter and it's 8.5 by 11, you just fold it once, and then it becomes 5.5 by 8.5, and now that newsletter is going to stand taller than your other enveloped mail, and it will stand out and be seen a lot easier.
I used to have a standing joke, when with my newsletters, because I would send them out that same way, and I would say, at least my customers got to remembered who I was, at least on the way to the garbage pail, even if they never read it.
Well, I actually teach a design concept when you fold it to 8.5 by 5.5, the one side is really reserved for the mailing panel, but there's a mailing panel only has to be so large. So you actually have what I call the horizontal AHA. And if anybody wants to see what, if you go to my website, nohasslenewsletters.com, you'll see I got all kinds of samples up there. But the horizontal AHA is just a horizontal little shaded box that sits right above the fold, and that still gives you plenty of room for the mailing address, return envelope, or return return address and things like that. Below that, below the fold, so if you flip it over, that other side, you want to put like maybe 2 articles, 2 small articles, what would be like 2 squares, and those should be things that are really high interest. Don't think of that as the bottom of the back page. You now need to think about that as almost page 1, because if you don't get their attention, thinking if you put all your good stuff on what would be page 1, you got to get them to pop the little tab and open it first. So if there's something that's a lot of high value, maybe it's a promotion or maybe it's just something really cool, you want to put it right there on the bottom of what's technically the back page, because that's what they're going to see when it comes out of the mailbox.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because they're looking at it and it's going to open up, and so they're going to look at that and say, well, what's on the inside? So we might get a better response or a better open rate. So what are some Dave, of the things? No, go ahead.
One other thing about that, if you're going to be promoting something, or there's a big event or something that's really important, what you want to do is you can still use the strategy I just mentioned and put a little box on the back of the bottom of what would be the back page, and you could just a quick little blurb or a picture, and you could put an arrow and said, read all about it on page 2 or something like that. So if there's a bigger thing that's going to need a little more explanation, that's how you can do that.
Okay, so that's awesome. I was going to ask you, what are some of the do's and don'ts as far as content for a newsletter? So let's go with the do's first, and let's talk about what killed it in the end.
Okay.
Or the other way around, whichever one you feel better with.
Okay, well, it's a longer list of the do's, but the number one cardinal sin for any newsletter, and whether it's printed newsletter or email newsletter, is being boring. So no matter what business you're in, whether you're in the paint business, contracting business, electrician, roofer, it doesn't matter. If you're boring your reader, I guarantee they're going to throw it in the trash. And the very least that will happen is, like you say, they're going to remember I stopped in their home every month via the newsletter on the way to the trash. I mean, that right. really is still semi-helpful, but it would be even more helpful if they read it. So don't be boring. And as much as your business is important to you, and as much as you as the owner of your business are so proud because you were recognized by the trade association or the local chamber of commerce for having, the prettiest trucks or the best fleet or the best service, I guarantee that's a big yawner to your readers. Dave, I'm sure you know this old expression, WW, whatever it is, it's like, what's in it for me? You've got to give people content that is interesting and informative and entertaining to them, not you. Man, I used to get in back in the day when my first business, when I was actually doing newsletters and meeting privately with clients, I'd get into some real battles with some of my clients, because there's one guy in particular was in the HVAC business. He goes, we just got our insurance rates lowered. I said, why is that? I thought it was an insurance story. And he goes, yeah, he's going, because we went a whole year without any accidents. I'd like to write about that in the newsletter. And I said, well, I don't think so. He goes, why not? I says, well, who's going to find that interesting? I think it's newsworthy. Okay, we got into this whole thing. And anyway, so you don't want to bore your reader.
Yeah, so probably the number one killer is don't talk about your industry.
Pretty much don't talk about your – now, let me give you a small caveat with what I'll now move into what you do want to put in your newsletter. Okay. There's two – so Dave, there's 2 types of content for a print newsletter. There's what I would call relevant content and non-relevant content. And relevant content really – has to do with whatever your business or your industry is, and non-relevant content has absolutely nothing to do with the relationship, why they hired you, whatever the services you perform. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a painter, and you may want to have one story, and I sometimes call this the success story. And so you might want to write a story about how you were hired to paint this, this very old home or barn, or a restored hotel, whatever it is, assuming it's not just painting somebody's shed out back, because that's probably not too interesting. But if there was something unique about what you did, you might want to show a before and after and things like that. The most important thing you want to do with the monthly success story is not write about your monthly deal of the month or your special of the month, because that now becomes salesy or markety, which I know is not a word, but you understand.
Yeah, but that's another sin too, isn't it? To try and sell on your newsletter.
If you write a story and people, I'll give you an example. So another one of my clients way back when was an insurance company, and he goes, Jim, I don't know what to put in the newsletter. I said, tell me something that's good that's happened in the last 30 days. And as an insurance guy, he goes, well, we insure a small manufacturer out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we save them like $21,000 on their premiums. And I said, well, how'd you do that? And he goes on and tells me. I says, okay, give me a couple more facts. I went away. I wrote the article. The headline was local manufacturer saves $21,000 on insurance premiums. The subheadline was here's how they did it. And in a story format, I told how they went in there. They did an insurance audit, and they found they didn't need some stuff. They were overpaying here, there, and everywhere. Now, the truth of the matter is there's not too many insurance companies who wouldn't gladly go into your business and do a free insurance audit. But if you've ever had somebody say, hey, we can do a free insurance audit, well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to come in and try and sell you insurance. So I just wrote about it like it was an event. And so let me tell you the good thing about that type of story is people read it like with interest, and it also said this insurance company who, they did everything from commercial, residential. So if a residential guy has maybe hired them for the homeowners or car, and he may own a business, if the current salesman's not up on it and didn't try, his guy goes, oh, I didn't know those guys sold commercial insurance, So it does that. That's the relevant content, and that's really about as far as you want to go. Non-relevant content, Dave, is everything else that I know you do so well in your newsletter. You do puzzles, recipes, fun facts, short little tips on, how to lower your heating bill in the winter, or how to take a long car trip with kids. It really has nothing to do with the business, but people find it interesting.
Yeah, and on mine, I found that it was really helpful, and I had one little column, and it really wasn't many words, less than 100, and I would put in something the family did, one of the grandkids, or something special they did, or we went on vacation, and it was just like keeping everybody up to date on what was going on with the family, and it was kind of cool, because, when people would see me, they'd say, hey, well, how's, Johnny doing, or Abby, or stuff like that. So it was fun. And I remember what was it? Bill Glazer would say, if you got a cat, people love cats. Write about your cat.
Yeah, or in my case, dogs. I mean, when we rescued our first dog, Toby, a little beagle, and then I would take him in my kayak. Oh my God! All of a sudden, the amount of people that were commenting and reading and posting, and they loved it. What's Toby up to? I'd go to different live events. Hey, how's Toby doing? And, inside I'm like, well, yeah, but what'd you think of my brilliant article on marketing? Oh, we just want to know about Toby.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's hilarious. I mean, it's funny, but it works, and here's, I know we've been talking about a print newsletter, and of course, print newsletters cost more than email, but when you really break it down, when, like you said before, if you get a 10% open rate and you're losing, 90% of your customers, how much money are you losing on the back end?
Well, you're losing a ton, and I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The Direct Marketing Association had a statistic once that said every 30 days that goes by without your customers hearing from you, 10% of them are likely to forget who you are. That's pretty scary. I mean, the highest cost for most companies is the cost of customer acquisition. So somebody hires you, and you paint their house once, and then you think, well, we did a good job. They'll call us next time they need us. No. How about they're going to forget about you in about 3 months if you don't start being in contact with them? So I want to give you 2 quick stories. Number one, going way, way back, I don't even know the date, probably like the early 2000s, Stephanie and I were refinancing our home at the time, and I got such amazing service from this one mortgage company that we went with, and he came out and gave me the forms. He had those little posty arrows showing where to sign, and then he said, we'll get you approved, and then I promise you, when you and Mrs. Palmer will spend less than, an hour and a half at closing, not the all-day scenario. And he literally did an amazing job, lived up to everything, and me being a lifetime student of customer service and things like that, I love to reward people. So I ended up telling some of my neighbors and people that I was working with at the time about this company. About 3 or 4 months goes by, and I remember the interest rates were starting to creep up. And my neighbor at the time, we passed each other in our lawn tractors. He goes, hey, I got to refinance my mortgage. Now, who's that guy you were blabbering about, a couple months ago? And I said, I don't know. I don't remember. He goes, well, what was the name of the company? I don't remember. I said, listen, I could get in the car and drive you there, but I don't know. I'm sure I can find it. I'll get it for you. The point of my story is it's not your customer's job to remember who you are and what you do. And so when a customer wants to either buy again or refer you, you want to be top of mind, and that's like the number one reason you need to be doing this frequently, monthly with print and weekly email if you're going to do that as well.
So in reality, let's say you're like, I know I have, one of my businesses is a painting business, and I have a long cycle, really, every 7 to 8 to 10 years, people will repaint their house. So that's not any different than a real estate agent who has, a long cycle for referrals, or not referrals, but for
for repeat.
Do business again, for repeat. So, and when I looked at my cost, I'm sorry, that was the wrong word to use. Cost is the negative thing. Investment. When I look at my investment,
there you go.
Because it's an investment, because I got a return on everything I did. To that newsletter, I figured that in order for me not to make a profit from repainting or even, go to a realtor selling or, another person's house, that I could do it for 15 years, 20 years before I never made a profit on them and do it again. So, for the sequential investment, and so I can run you some numbers earlier, and this is kind of blew me away. I sort of knew it, but for every dollar I spent on a newsletter, I got a $21.31 return. So 1 year I spent $4,200 the year that I actually tracked it, and I got a $90,000 return. That was about 35% of my business for that year.
Wow.
So why would I not continue to invest in something that would bring me that kind of return? It's crazy.
Yeah. So I got one, and it's very, very similar to your story. So, Dave, when I started in 2001, one of the first clients I had was a mortgage broker, and he was doing a very simple 2-page black and white newsletter, nothing big and expensive, but he did it every single month. And back in the day, as they say, I went to his office and I was giving him some extra copies. And I know the benefits, but I couldn't help but ask. And I said, hey, Chuck, I have to ask you, what's the average return for one of your clients to refinance or buy another home? He goes, it's like 8 years. And I said, geez, I totally appreciate your business, but how is the newsletter working for you? And he goes, Jim, every single time I mail a newsletter, I get at least one new client by way of referral. And that's why, I remember the other story about me personally. That's why. And that's the power of being in front of your clients.
Yeah. I just, for people who say, well, it costs money. No, it really, when you get down to cost, it costs money not to do things when you have something that's actually working.
You know what else is a big thing is I call it lost customer reactivation. So
okay.
if things don't go well or somebody leaves and just maybe it could be over a discrepancy. Listen, time heals all wounds, including in business. And so what I tell people is you not only want to mail everybody in your customer list, but you want to mail former customers as well, because I have so many stories from my own clients that there's a guy up in Boston who does he helps doctors' offices with medical billing. Like I can't. It's been a few years. I can't imagine what he goes through today. But he would go in and like audit their books and find things, and he got paid when he found kind of lost money, if that makes sense.
Right.
Anyway,
yeah.
There's a lot of people who do that, and he said, one time I was talking to him, I lost a customer. He said, he was a gruff guy. He goes, I'm going to take that son of a you-know-what off my mailing list. I said, do not do that. No. He goes, what do you mean? The guy left me just to save $1, right? And I said, keep mailing them. What's it going to cost you? Postage and 10 cents for paper? Just keep mailing them.
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold, about 6 months later, Dave, he sent me an email and said, he actually goes, damn it, you were right again. He goes, that guy called me up, and I'm now doing business with him again. Long story short, he basically said the grass is not always greener. I thought I was going to save money, and this company I'm with now sucks, and I'd love to come back and work with you. Now, the reason that's important is when people like this guy, maybe he was a hothead left, sometimes it's going to feel like awkward to go back. And because you're sending him the newsletter, because you're seeing a picture of you smiling with your cat or your grandkids or whatever, you're still maintaining the personal connection. And it sort of says, it's okay, I still like you. Come back if you want, in a very subtle way.
Well, yeah, you're leaving the door open. You're not shutting it.
That's right. And he goes, Jim, by the way, he goes, I'm not sure I should tell you this, but that customer is worth about $12,000 a year to me. I said, and I jokingly said, never complain about my rates again.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. So yeah, I know it gets crazy when you start thinking about, well, I've got this, and I think I know what the answer is. But why do you feel that most people are let's say, I'm going to say that the top 5%ers are the only ones that use newsletters? Or the written newsletter.
Well, I'll give you the two reasons why I actually got into the newsletter business 16 years ago, because most people know the value of maintaining a relationship. If you want to grow your business, increase your revenues and your profits, the number one way to do that is to make stronger relationships with your customers. A newsletter happens to be the best way to do that. A lot of people don't make that connection. Now, once they do think about the newsletter, and newsletters have been around forever, so people go, yeah, I think a newsletter is a good idea. But my clients have always told me two things. I never know what to put in it, and it takes too long to put it together, because who has time when you're putting out fires every day to do your own newsletter? And so that's why I built a really profitable business, Dave, is I solved those two pains. So the top, as you say, the top 10 or the top 5% of the people that do it, most of those people don't do it themselves. They have somebody, whether it's in-house or whether they hire a service like No Hassle Newsletters, they have it done for them. It's that old thing I always talk about, delegate or stay small forever. So they know the value of it. And even though they don't have expertise to know how to put the newsletter together, they solve that problem and just see that it's done.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense, because I remember, I forget who I was listening to, but they were doing an interview, and he was, I don't even remember who it was, but they asked him, they said, listen, if you were going to cut out, he had like 17 marketing pieces going out, strategies all the time. If they said, if you had to cut out everything but one piece of your marketing, what would be that one thing that you would save? And he goes, that's a no-brainer. He said, my newsletter. He said, by far I make more money off my newsletter than I do any other piece of marketing that I have, because it's on a consistent basis, it's every month, and everyone gets it, and every time it goes out, I get business because it's a warm, friendly climate. Customers, the people I've already done business with, the people I've, did proposals for or whatever, and they know who I am. and they know that it's coming every month, he said, I would go out of business, he says, if I gave up that as opposed to the others.
You know what's interesting about that, Dave, is that the challenge, and so I'm going to expose, I don't know what I'm going to expose. I'll call it the dark underbelly of the business or whatever. But the challenge for people like myself and other people who do newsletters for companies is that a newsletter is not a quick, profitable solution. A newsletter is a relationship-building tool. And so what happens is people will say, okay, you've really convinced me, and maybe somebody's even listening to this interview going, yeah, I'm going to really do it. Well, they're going to do their first newsletter. Maybe they'll do their second one. And again, when the rockets and the flares go up or don't go up, they're going to say, well, crap, this ain't working. And I'll tell you, I have figured it out because I wrote my first newsletter when I was 21. I don't know how many years ago that was, but it's a long time ago. And what I have learned is it takes, on average, about 6 months for a newsletter to take hold. Now, if you think about it, how many times as a business owner have you tried something? Oh, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then it doesn't work, so you go do something else. Well, people are used to people who just throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, 3 to 4 months in, maybe 6 months at the most, on average, is what it takes. So my challenge in my business is when I get a new customer, I need to make sure I help them get their newsletter done, and I need to keep giving them some courage to stick it out, because the people who stick it out for 4 to 6 months, they become lifers with me because things begin to happen. Referrals, repeat business, customers you haven't heard of in a long time suddenly come back. And when you hear any of those things happening in your business, you get excited as the owner, and this magical thing happens where you say, is it the 13th or the 10th? I can't wait to get the next newsletter out because I know predictably it's going to bring me business. But it's that 4 to 6 months when you're putting money out, investing, and it's not coming back to you. That's kind of the danger zone.
Yeah, and here's a funny thing. While you were talking, I was thinking about all the people that go to get a website and they hire an SEO guy, and they pump in thousands of dollars, and the SEO goes, it's going to take 4 to 6 to 8 months. And you go, well, yeah, I know that. But but they still get.
My God.
But when you give them something or you present something to them that will absolutely, without a doubt, bring in the business from repeat business or referral business, because those are the people that it's already a warm market. You're spending thousands on the other side, hoping and praying. And here, with the newsletter, you've got pretty much a guaranteed result. I'm not going to say it's going to be as high as mine, but it's going to be a guaranteed result. Even if you got like that mortgage broker who got one deal a month out of that. What does an average mortgage broker get? I'm going to say $6,000, $4,000 to $6,000, and I know that's light. That's on the light side.
Yep. And so I tell you what.
Yeah,
Dave. When he told me that, you know what I was doing as I'm driving home? I go, just a minute here. He's paying me like $800 a month to do this, and that's back in the day before I knew how to charge people. But let's just say I'm charging him $800 to do a 2-page newsletter, and he just told me he's getting anywhere from $4,000 or $6,000 an issue. There's something wrong here on my side.
Yeah, and it depends. It depends on the amount of the mortgage. So it gets crazy if you're. I don't know what the percentage rates, but I know that when we refinanced our house, we knew, but he made like $12,000.
Mhm.
Which was fine. I mean, I couldn't do it.
That's totally fine. That's business.
Yeah, that's business. So if you're a real estate agent and you have something that goes out every month to all of your clients or all the people that you made proposals to, I think that to do something like this is just stellar, because if you got two or three resales or referrals because of this from past clients, what could that mean? anywhere's, I mean, I know a lot of the realtors that we know are in the selling the $500,000 and $600,000 and $700,000 range. So what's commission on one? I mean, you could probably finance, you could probably invest in from that one sale 5 years worth of newsletters.
Yeah. I had this client, we're going into our old war stories here, but there was a client many years ago who heard me speak. I used to speak an awful lot on retention and newsletter marketing, and I told people a couple things about doing a print newsletter. Number one, it will hang around. It's not going to get tossed. It will get passed around, sometimes from one person to another, and you are going to get new business from your success story, right? So this one business did it, and it was literally, and the other thing I told her was, the old, it takes 6 months. I'm always pretty upfront about that. This woman sent me what up to that time had been my greatest testimonial. She sent me an email and said, Jim, you were right on all 3 counts. She was in the insulation business, of all things, like different types, I guess the batten type, they blow it in, all these different things. Anyway, she goes, we did an article on this historic building in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and somehow somebody that received my newsletter passed it to a contractor in Chicago who was just hired to rehab a very old building, and evidently taking apart the walls and insulating it was not an option, so they were interested in this. Back then it was kind of new, this blown-in technology or foam or something. And long story short, Dave, she got the job. It was worth $360,000. And she goes, Jim, the newsletter, the story worked. My newsletter got passed around. And just by coincidence, we got that $360,000 job approximately 6 months after we started with your newsletter company.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I was right. Yeah, I could see you doing the dance, Jim.
I was doing the dance, but here's the lesson for everybody. She doesn't get a $360,000 job every time she mails her newsletter.
No.
But how many of those do you need? I mean, if your average sale is $5,000, how many do you need to make that newsletter? If you get that 3 times a year, I mean, you're in the good.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. I know we've been talking about the newsletter, and I still want to continue, but let's say for print newsletters, what do you recommend, color or black and white?
So it's always a good question, and I would say for the vast majority of customers, a black and white newsletter will do the job. Because remember what the job is. It's to stay top of mind, share some information, and just keep you ever present in front of your customer. You don't need color to do that. Now, if you are, let me think of a couple. Let's say you're a dentist and you do restorative work or you do teeth whitening. Let's say you're a florist or a landscaper who transforms backyards. Those people will want to show before and after pictures, or at least a couple.
Sure.
And I think you're going to need color there. And maybe if you're a painter, I don't know, but the thing is, for if you recognize what the job is that the newsletter is supposed to do, you most often don't need color. And maybe you just need color once in a while because you'll definitely save money doing it black and white.
Sure. And look at it from this standpoint, and I've always looked at it from this standpoint. Black and white is great, and I guess it would be dependent on the industry, but I always thought that black and white is great, mainly for the purpose that no one else is doing it. So what do they have to compare to?
That's right. Yeah, I know the amount. When I have, I mean, I've literally had thousands and thousands of clients use my program, and when I think of how much success of the vast majority of those people have compared to how many small businesses there are out there, it's a very small percentage that are actually doing this. Again, I think the big thing is, you and I know the word investment. Most people go, oh, that's an expense. I'm not going to put out, $500, $1,000, $200, whatever it is. I'm not going to expense that to a newsletter. I'd rather put a billboard up on Route 30 or something. People are very short-sighted that way. Yeah,
I know. But I remember when I was in your seminar in Orlando. Don't ask me what month it was because I forget.
February.
Was it in February? Okay. you had a lawyer there, then because we were talking about newsletters, and he willingly spends $5,000 a month on newsletters.
He does. Yep.
Willingly, because of the return that he gets.
Yeah. Sam Gaylord, just talking with him yesterday. He's an attorney in Trenton, New Jersey, and every month, like clockwork, I see a $5,000 print order come in, and we send his newsletters out for him. And I'm like, Sam, that's awesome. And of course, sometimes I see it and I go, geez, I hope it's working for him. But, because that's a lot of money. And he goes, you're not going to believe how much money I get on that thing. I mean, first of all, if he gets new clients from it, again, does he need 1, 2, or 5 a year? But he pretty much gets new business every single month. He sends that out. I mean, it's a great testimony to how it works. It's funny as a business owner. Sometimes you're like, geez, I hope it's working for him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But then it goes back to it's. I think if you think about it correctly as an investment, and you put it in as your budget as a marketing strategy, then and know that it's going to give you a return. Like you said, it's going to be at least 6 months. So big deal. Most people have spent money because somebody walked in the door and says, you ought to do this. And they go, oh, I do need to market. I'll do that. And it could be something really dumb. And when it doesn't work, you say, how come it doesn't work? And he goes, well, you got to let it run for 6, 7, 8 months. You got to brand yourself, which is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But, but because there's a big difference between marketing to a warm audience and doing a cold audience. And they're two different animals altogether. But like I said, if you put it in your marketing budget, I think is that if you're tracking where your money is going for your marketing, which most people don't, then what's working and what's not working, and what's not working as well as the other thing, and you could just say, okay, I'm cutting this out and putting it into here where I know it's going to work. I mean, it's really not a hard thing to do. It's just doing it.
But once again, we live in what I call a microwave mentality or microwave society. Yeah. You can microwave a Thanksgiving meal in 3.5 minutes, but you can't microwave trust, and you can't microwave response. And what that means is you mentioned earlier SEO. We got a good mutual friend, One Click Lindsay Anderson, who does SEO for myself and I think several other people in our group. And one of the things that she has to overcome, just like me with the newsletters, is you start SEOing a website and stuff, and somebody looks at the results 30 days later, forget about it. It's one of those things that's going to take a little bit of time. What I would tell people to do is you always want to be watching where you're investing your money, but you ought to be looking at it 6 months down the road and then 12 months, like 6-month increments, because it's the only way that you're going to see trends. When I started working with some other people, Gary George and other people, SEOing and doing list building for me, my wife goes, I have the patience of a gnat, Dave, and I'm like 60 days in. Even though I know and I talk this stuff, I go, Gary, how come I'm not ranking up? He goes, geez, Jim, next thing you know, I'm up there. I'm on page 1 or 2. My list is growing. You got to give it time to percolate and grow. And it's the same thing, whether it's a newsletter or website or blogging or podcasting. But here's the thing. Once it catches hold and people sample what I would consider your value and the information you're sharing, and by the way, here's another reason that print is so much more powerful. How many businesses will send out a weekly or a bi-monthly email, with a tip of the week or something, because everybody can do that because it's free. How many business owners, small business owners, are actually putting their money where their mouth is and sending a print newsletter that says, hey, and I don't say they write this on the front page, it's inherent in the act, but we value you. Thank you for being a customer. Here's some fun and good information. We hope you enjoy it. And they do that month in and month out. Now, first of all, the customer is going to have that kind of a realization, if you will. The second thing that says is that, wow, this guy's really in business. All these other schmucks are just sending an email, which everybody can do, and I wonder how well they're doing, So even if you're investing in a newsletter for 6 months, and even if you have to put it on a credit card, or in other words, some way kind of put it out there, it tells your customer simply by the act of you doing it that you're doing well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does, because it's there again. You're keeping in front of them, and what you've taken, you as a business owner, you've taken responsibility to keep yourself in front of the customer and to remind them who you are, instead of hoping they remember who you are, like that mortgage broker you had. If he sent you a newsletter monthly, then he would have said, "Oh, yeah, I just got his newsletter. Here's his name. Here's his number."
That's right.
Yeah. So I know we're getting close to the end of our time, because you've got to be on another call. But nohasslenewsletter.com is the place where everyone, if they want to, check you out. And you do have specific niches that you do newsletters for, don't you? Like you do one for realtors, you'll do one for dentists, you'll do one for construction workers, you'll do one for mortgage brokers, you'll do one for whatever.
We have. It is so. I'm actually not sure about construction workers, but we have about a dozen. We have about a. Yeah, forget everything.
We won't let them hear this.
Yeah, we have about a dozen done-for-you templates, Dave. We offer a newsletter called FYI, and we offer another one called In Touch, which can be, like, when I say easily adapted, I mean literally in less than a minute can be adapted to any business, and they're completely ready to go. And then we have about a dozen templates for other industries, like you mentioned, chiropractors, attorneys, dentists, doctors, realtors, that kind of thing. But the thing is, we offer also custom masthead service. So I got some great artists, and if somebody wanted to become a client of nohasslenewsletters.com, they can order a custom masthead. So my artists will actually design something specifically for their business, and then because our templates are in Word, and by the way, let me say, they don't look like Word. We design them, in Publisher and Quark, and then we have them converted to Word, so they're very easy for anybody to work with. So they look amazing, but it's as simple as swapping out a photo. If you want to use the In Touch template, you can swap out the In Touch masthead, put your masthead in that we create for you, and then your newsletter is 100% customized for your business.
Cool. So I'm hearing that you have a do it for yourself or a done for you. You have both?
We do. So nohasslenewsletters.com, you'll see all the templates. Our service is $197 a month, and you get the templates. You get about 20 pages of content of different articles. So if you want to swap out an article that you think is a little bit more appropriate or whatever, you can do that. We also offer something called a concierge service, where you can use one of my designers every month, and this person will customize the template for you. So if you don't even want to do that, if you want to be up on the ladder or meeting with your clients or whatever, you can work with somebody. Lindsay Phillips is on my team. I know you know Lindsay.
Yeah.
She'll customize the template for your business. Another business that I have is called Concierge Print and Mail on Demand, so we can actually print and mail your newsletter for you. Lindsay, again, will shepherd that through. So $197 is the base rate for you to get the templates and the content. I believe, don't hold me to this, but I believe it's $177 a month if you want to have Lindsay on your team, which in full candor is not a big money maker for me. I do it as more of a service to keep my members longer. Because you're getting somebody like Lindsay on your team for $177 a month. That's a bargain as far as I'm concerned. And then
she's real fun to work with too.
Oh, she's such a pro, and she's great. And then our print service depends on whether you're doing black and white and the quantity, but you can see all the pricing at our website. Yeah. But the first stop for everybody would be nohasslenewsletters.com.
Okay, super. That's really awesome. Hey, I just want to thank you for sharing all this stuff, and really my goal is to help everyone understand that they can get a 100% open rate on their newsletter, but it just has to be the right type of newsletter.
100% open rate. Well, you know what? 100% deliverable rate, and they're going to at least get it in their hands, which would be, if you want to be somebody on your show, Dave, is going to be very specific. Well, they didn't pop the little mailing tab, so that's not the kind of open rate we're talking about.
That's not my fault. I got to see your name and who you are, dude.
Yeah, I'm trying to watch out for you, but no, it's been a fun interview. It looked like I dusted off some of the stuff I used to talk about in my sleep.
It's like riding a bicycle. It all came back.
It all came back to me, and I would just welcome your listeners to check us out. If they have any questions, you'll find we actually have an 800 number. You can get some information from a number of people on my team, either through phone call or email, and we would love to work with some of your listeners.
Cool, that's awesome. So I'll put this in part of on the webpage with the link to the teleseminar. That's what this is.
Very good.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, Dave, thanks for having me on.
Again, I want to thank you for joining us and investing your time with us today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, go to iTunes and give us a shout-out. You can also go to our website, www.contractorsecretweapon.com, and check out today's episode and leave us a comment in the bottom of the page. And if you haven't gotten your 15 secret weapon strategies to getting higher-end customers, get it while you're at the website. Also, I want to thank again our sponsors for keeping this podcast alive, for your profit-making pleasure. And so go be profitable this week. Work smarter, not harder, and learn how to leverage your time and your knowledge so that you can be more profitable. Again, see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Contractors Secret Weapon podcast with Dave Negri. We would love to hear your comments about this episode, so visit us online at www.contractorssecretweapon.com and let us hear your thoughts. If you are listening via iTunes, please leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive, the more other contractors will benefit from this show. Thank you, and see you next time here on the Contractors Secret Weapon podcast.